So we're going to start. Hopefully, we'll have time to um, watch the end of the video, not the introduction, but the second part. I know there are a couple of people who emailed me that they had other commitments tonight. Did anyone was anyone able to watch Danielle Hartman?
Yeah.
How about the second video? So
Of
that's
12, of unit 12?
yeah, the
Yes,
second.
I did.
Okay, so that's the one that I was going to have us watch later in it. But for those of you who are interested in the changing views of Israelis, I would especially say, Michelle, this will interest you. Look in the forward. Um, Danielle Hartman yesterday or this morning, I don't know. I can't do day from night now when I like, because I'm on Israel time, I'm on this time. When did they write it? But Danielle wrote maybe I'll get it at some point and I'll put it in the chat about the changing nature of how even Israelis are feeling about the war that I think is interesting. Interesting to hear from, head of this major center. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Tov. We are going to think about what it means to be someone as part of a family and what does it mean to be a consumer. So if you have the text, we're going to elongate this text a little bit. So family, right? It says in the text, a group of people related by blood and having a shared sense of belonging and mutual obligation. I think that's not the right definition. Anyone want to help me correct the Hartman's definition? I don't agree with it. The first thing I would remove is blood.
True. True.
I think there's so many people in our lives who build families through adoption. And also, many people as adults feel like they are part of family units when it's not by blood. You also, none of your marriages you're not blood relatives to your spouses. So there are many ways that we build family. And I think enlarging that definition of family is really helpful for us. And in fact, what Danielle teaches is that the family this is a metaphor, obviously. It's not supposed to be used as a literal category or a literal racial category, but as an imagined larger family. It's about a community who chooses to view each other as historically connected. And when you are part of a family, you generate a core, unconditional mutual obligation. So because you are all pretty educated Jews, what's the line that tells you that, oh, Jews as a family have responsibilities to each other? Anyone know that line in either Hebrew or in English?
וכל ישראל ערבים זה לזה.
Yeah, so all of Israel is responsible one for the other. And by Israel, we don't mean Israel, we mean the Jewish people, right? All of the Jewish people is responsible one for another. I wonder, and I would ask you to think about this for a moment, how large in your own personal families does that obligation go? Of course, you feel an obligation to your parents and your children. Do you also feel an obligation to your siblings? Do you also feel an obligation to cousins? At what point, and I'm asking because the reason I want to know is I think that the way we think of family will inform how we will use family as a metaphor for the Jewish people. So when you think of family, what are some of the things that you think about? Your family. This is audience participation.
When I think of family, I immediately think of my children, what I'm going to be leaving behind, and my grandchildren. To me, that's family. I don't have a lot of cousins, My brother is deceased. My parents, I don't have a lot of family still around me, but they are my family, my children and my grandchildren.
You think of legacy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You think of legacy. How many of you have a different, yeah, Edna?
Maybe you mentioned not necessarily blood, but maybe instead of blood, I would change it to sharing a name and history in the large scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for you, and you're taking it away from the individual, but in your own family, it's interesting as someone, your name is hyphenated, right?
Yes, I wanted to keep it Brin, but my conservative mom said, no way. So I made it hyphenated. But I do mean name, especially, I'm not trying to take time about personal, but I'm trying to apply it. Like in my case, I didn't have grandparents or big family because they were perished in the Shoah. So, and I'm an only child, but still, I feel that I have a large family because we all carry the same names, both sides, and same kind of roots, as
Ah,
far as we can go to these roots.
so family, what I take from that is that family is the first source of our identity. The first way we identify. And generally, people think that there's not really an option for exit from one's family. And we do. And look, people can exit from their families, and it's usually messy and not nice. The other thing I think about family as a metaphor is that we like to think there's no exit. We like to think that it means mutual obligation. And we like to think that it's not really so voluntary, right? Distinct from family as a metaphor for the Jewish people are the rest of the Israel and world Jewry definitions that are listed. I'm using, by the way, their text. Does everyone have their text that they sent out? Okay. So what again, anything you want to add to what family means for you as a Jew? And do you feel like you are family with all Jews? Or which Jews do you feel like you're family with? Anyone? Yeah, Debbie.
So I think another aspect of it, I mean, it depends, there are some members of my family which we've lost touch with. We see just a few times a year, and there are others who live in this area. So I think a big part of being part of the family is, if someone needs help, then whether they're in the area or the ones that we don't see that much, if they needed help too, I mean, we would jump to do whatever we could do for them.
Mutual obligation. Yeah, that you would jump to do. Maybe a sense of family, the way families function today is less that is more the way that families function as the Jewish people as a family, that we are sometimes scattered. Your families may be scattered all over the country or all over the world. It's not maybe the definition of my bubby's family, who all, lived on the same block and all were in the same shtetl in Europe, right? The metaphor of family that we use for the Jewish people are people who are connected. They're historically connected. We have mutual obligation. We use Judaism and Jewish culture as a source of our identity, and we don't really take the option to exit. That's how we are part of this large Jewish family. I want to add that one of the things that makes me think of family is I don't think of it now, but I think about the large Siddarim, the large Seders that we had when I was a child, where there'd be a kids' table. Do any of you have that or still have that, where there's a kids' table?
Yeah.
And there's so many people, and you don't necessarily know everyone, or you know them, but you don't get together so often. And there's the table where the kids are, and they can have fun. I think about this story in my life where it was all the adults are at one very, very long table, and the kids are at another table. And the kids, at least in my house, were trying to speak all the Yiddish that they knew, which was only Yiddish curse words, because the great grandparents and grandparents only would teach us, only would speak the curse words in Yiddish. There was something loud and raucous about all of those times when the large family was together. I think about the same thing about Thanksgiving. So messy. I think Seder is actually the best metaphor for when a family comes together, because you'll have a quarter of your table who wants to read the whole Haggadah, and a quarter of your table that wants to sing the whole Haggadah, and a quarter of your table who thinks it's ridiculous that you're reading from a book and they want you to pass them the soup. That, like, Seder, a good family, large Seder is really, for me, the good metaphor of the Jewish family, or the Judaism as a family. We don't all believe the same things, but we have a similar script. Anyone want to add anything about Judaism as a family? Okay, can someone, do you have the text in front of you? Can
Yeah.
somebody read shared believers? Fellow believers?
I have it.
Yeah, can you read?
Shared believers, a group of people who have a strong commitment to a shared religious belief or a belief that something is right or good.
Okay, so here's the thing about this one. To be part of the Jewish people then is to be part of a group with a common mission. So that common mission in biblical terms could be to be a mamlechet kohanim, to be a sovereignty kingdom of priests, to do tikkun olam, to be or lagoyim, a light unto nations. Danielle Hartman would say part of our mission is to not give Hitler, Yamach Shemo, a posthumous victory. Those are all parts of the modern day mission of the Jewish people. But the problem with the fellow believers definition is that we join because we identify with the mission, and not as a family. You're just part of the family. You may not agree with all of it, but you're still part of it. Also, when you have fellow believers, if you have to believe something and then you don't believe it, what happens? Then you exit, right? Then you're not really part of it, which is really why when we teach children in religious school, we want to teach them this idea of Judaism as a family. We want that model, because just a shared belief in one God or in the mission of the Jewish people, okay, so then I fight with one group and I leave. What is missing from this designation, fellow believer, that we had as Judaism as a family?
We can still fight and not agree and stay together. So
No, but as the fellow believers one, there's no sense of mutual obligation. Using the metaphor of family means that we're obligated to each other in some way. Okay, partners. You want to read the partners one?
A group of people who join in a common undertaking with shared risks and profits.
So it can also, this can be because we share a belief, but it can also be for less idealistic reasons, for our safety, right? Some people say that the Jewish people, when they left Egypt, shared, I don't know if they shared a belief yet in one God. We don't know that, but I know that they needed to be together because they were being attacked by Amalek. So they had some sort of shared mission from that. Partners share in risks and in profits. And to be a partner, you're there when it's good and when it's bad. Problem with being a partner is, anyone ever have a partner in a business? A business relationship can be exited. A marriage can be exited. You know, you can really get out of it. Okay, the next way of thinking about Jewish peoplehood is as an investor. Someone read that? Yeah, Debbie Brett.
Participant in a collective enterprise that expends money, capital, or resources with the expectation of achieving a profit or gaining an advantage.
Does this sound familiar to anyone? This, for me, this feels like a lot of American Jews. I don't mean anyone who's a member of synagogue. I mean like others. Maybe people who just donate. So
But I don't think that's what that intends to convey.
Well, yeah. Okay, so the investors, they can go, you can invest in something and you can get out relatively easily. You don't have a long-term goal in it, a long-term stake in it.
And you also have expectations, as they said, and what we've heard so much more of in more recent decades than we heard, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, is I'm paying how much money for two days or 3 days to go to shul? This isn't worth it. There wasn't that same sense that so many Jews had before. You have to belong to a synagogue and invest in it. And even if you're only there 3 days a week, you still need to have that synagogue there for others. I think that shared buy-in is just not as wide ranged as it used to be.
So it's interesting that you put it there. When I read it, when I was listening to the, I thought that they were talking about, I think it absolutely fits how you're talking about it, Judy. And I also think it's, when they're thinking about it, it's about, the model of an American Jew investing in Israel,
Oh.
but not feeling this, okay, I can invest in, and then I can walk away. I'm not as bound. We want our relationship to be, I want that an American Jew, I feel as bound to the Jews in, Hadera and in Jerusalem and in Morocco and in South Africa, but all over. But I think it also fits for how Jews think of the community today. Okay, consumers. Person who purchases or benefits from the use of goods and services. And you know what? To be a consumer, you can exit very easily. And where have we seen that? Right? We've seen this in American Judaism all over. We see the consumer model means that people exit if their identity is as I get something from this. If I feel like I'm not getting something from it, I'm out. And I don't mean here synagogue membership. I mean membership in the Jewish peoplehood, about how we think of peoplehood. So the family model and the consumer model are the ones that we're thinking about, and about how those two models are used and have implications for Israel and world Jewry's relationship. What is our relationship to the state of Israel as American Jews? And then what is Israel's relationship to non-Israeli Jewish communities or diaspora communities? In the very beginning, when we started here 12 weeks ago, many more, but 12 weeks ago, we talked about the inception of our people being seen as a family. Our descendants were going to be, our family, the Jewish people, were going to be descendants of Abraham, or then descendants of Israel, the children of Israel. And our current name, Jew or Jewish, derives from the story of our shared descent from what tribe?
Judah.
Yeah, from the tribe of Judah. It's all about our family connections. Also, there's an incredibly important line when we think about family. I used the earlier line that Edna used also, that all of Israel is responsible for one another. There's a really interesting line in the Talmud in Masachet Sanhedrin Yisrael shechata Yisraelhu. This is not on your text. Yisrael shechata Yisraelhu. So we translate that. Anyone want to translate? A Jew who sins, they're a Jew. It's not like you can say, oh, if I've done such wrong and I've sinned, I'm not still part of the great Jewish family, the mishpacha. You are. What do what's the problem with a Jew who doesn't keep kosher? What do you call a Jew who doesn't keep kosher?
A
A
Jew.
Jew.
Yeah. Right. It's part of your family and part of your identity, which is so interesting.
Yeah, one of the things I remember being a newcomer to the Hebrew school that I heard from my own students here, being new Israeli. I'm not a good Jew. And I was shocked, even the concept. And it takes
Right.
back to our conversation. What do you mean you're not a good Jew? No, my family doesn't keep maybe the Shabbat. We are driving, whatever, doesn't matter. And I would always try to explain to them that the whole notion doesn't make sense, kind of.
Right. So for an Israeli, I'm so happy that you're here to be able to explain this. For an Israeli, that the even way that sentence is built doesn't work. It just, the concept doesn't work. And you hear it today all the time, especially in comedians, they talk about being a bad Jew. An Israeli would never talk that way. And in fact, maybe even the way, not now, but in the 80s, when there was a divide between Chilonim and Datiim, secular and Israelis, many of the secular folks would not call the observant Jews good Jews. They would have derogatory names to call them, not good Jew. So the way that belonging to peoplehood was set up between diaspora Judaism and between Israeli Judaism is so radically different. So here, Israel and the family model. It's as a family model that we ultimately emerged from 2,000 years of exile and returned to Israel to rebuild the national homeland as a family. And because of that, what important law, and I should say important and controversial law, gets built? You know?
Chok HaShvut, the returning law.
Yeah, the law of return. So the law of return states that any Jew who has connections to the Jewish people, and this is actually text number 3 in the background material. It was written in 1952, text number 3. Every Oleh under the law of return, everyone who comes to Israel, who's a Jew, becomes part of the state of Israel. How long does it take to get citizenship in the United States? Anyone? I don't know. I thought it was like 10 years. No, 7 years?
It can take a very long time now. It could be 7 years.
A minimum of
Depends
7.
on how you come and so on,
Right.
Yeah,
So,
or it could be 3 years.
or it could be, depends.
Yeah.
okay, if you're Jewish and you get a letter, even from me, your female conservative rabbi, stating that you're a member of the synagogue and that your parents were Jewish, and you fly on an El Al plane, since that's all that's really flying, maybe one United plane a week or so, and you land and you're in the airport, and you actually can go to an office and show them your paperwork. I mean, you can do it beforehand if you would like as well. And you know what you'll get?
Identity card, תעודת עולה, a card of a new immigrant.
New immigrant card with citizenship.
Yeah, with
Not a green card. Not like when you would, not like when not like when a person comes to immigrate to America. You get everyone on this, except Edna, because she already has it. Everyone on this Zoom is entitled to citizenship in the state of Israel, according to the law of return. Because when the Jewish state was founded, It was founded on the precept that we are all part of this family. Being part of the family means citizenship. Now, what's interesting is for decades and decades and decades, North American Jewish support for Israel was founded on this notion of family. They are part of our family, and so we help them. At the beginning, it was financial, and that financial help created a power imbalance, right? And also a knowledge about, an imbalance of the knowledge about each other. Israeli and American Jews didn't know about each other. And in fact, one of the negatives of this is that we saw for many decades, many Israeli Jews, unless they were well-traveled, didn't know about diaspora Jewry. I think that right now, and in the last 15 years or so, the Sochnut, the Jewish agency in Israel, has done a much better job about having Jews that live in Israel travel and learn about diaspora communities and have us, certainly since the birthright trip, be able to go to Israel and learn about that Jewish community. What we had set up till this point was we are family, and who's the more important family member? Who's the favored child in this Jewish family? Anyone?
What do you mean, Israel? I don't know. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
Israel's the favored child. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah. Out of Israel shall come all the ideas and all of what we consider to be Jewishly right. And that's what we would say as American Jews, but we would not act that way. Right? We created our own Jewish culture here in America that's actually quite different than Israeli Jewish culture. I'm not going to be the one to say one is better or worse. They're just different. From that kind of difference, we get good things in Israel, right? American Zionists moved to Israel and we get a little bit more feminism. We get a little bit more egalitarian Judaism. Israelis, for the most part, still see themselves as part of Jews are part of a great family. We saw that most importantly on October 7th, when every Israeli Jew knew this was for about all of them. It wasn't just some Jews in the South were being attacked. It was everyone. Everyone is part of that family. It also permeates Israeli culture. And you have an example that we are all somehow family, how that is much more the model of Israeli Jewry than it is of American Jewry. I wish it would be of American Jewry, meaning I want it to be, but it really is much more the model of we are all one family of Israeli Jewry. Anyone have any examples of that?
I just think since the war, the idea of, Israelis going down to the South to pick the crops or do things like that, of a lot of the more religious Jews deciding to serve at this particular time, or also to do some of the work down there. Just it feels like the volunteer effort was just everywhere, and maybe I'm idealizing it. I wasn't
No,
there.
it feels that way. It does feel that way, that people are responsible for another. I have this other model of, how many of you have been to weddings in Israel? They just seem bigger than weddings here, right? More people are invited. Simchas are, right?
Yeah.
That explain that a little bit, Edna.
First of all, it's less formal. I don't know. It's interesting that you pick this kind of example, but yes, it's almost like you invite anybody that you feel that knows enough about you and your family and your kids. It can be even the clerk in the bank. I don't know.
That's right.
In case he's so friendly and he knows everything about you, or the neighbors. So weddings in Israel are, I would say, the average 300 people. It's an average wedding,
At least.
at least.
Yeah. And
But
I,
we can add some reality also. You get more food for less money than here. So maybe, so
Ab-
okay,
absolutely.
this was like in parentheses that it comes out that you get so much food. Here it's like you have to decide if it's a fish or a chicken. No, I'm just kidding. But yes, it's like 300 people. It's like an average wedding.
Yeah. So we love I love the family model of that's how the Jewish people see each other. By the way, this is a dig against myself and North American Jewish community, maybe, but to be a Zionist in America meant a commitment to Israel, but not a commitment to move to Israel. Right? Many people in the American Jewish community, myself included, can consider themselves Zionists, supporters of the state of Israel, but have not moved. I still live here. I sometimes call myself an armchair Zionist, right? I live here, not there. But our family members understand. They understand that some people live here and some people live there, and that we are somehow one and connected. I believe that is still the model of Jewish peoplehood in Israel. I believe it's still the model of Jewish peoplehood of every single person on this Zoom. Believe that you are mostly believers in Judaism as a family, and that using that as a metaphor, as opposed to what Danielle Hartman was teaching in a lecture about the consumer model.
Wow.
I don't think any of you are really the consumer model, right? So in the consumer model, look, this transformation of American Judaism maybe has been taking place since the 1980s. Jewishness, we know, is seen less and less as an inherited and involuntary identity and more of a choice. How do I know that? By the way, what do we call converts today?
Jews.
Jews of choice.
Jews
Jews
of
of
choice.
choice. And then many folks will say, as a rebuttal of that, well, today all Jews are Jews of choice. I'm not, how many do you, I'm not sure most of the people here on this Zoom would feel that way. Do you feel that way? Stephen does. Okay. Or do you have a comment? Oh, we can't hear you.
I know. I was muted and I answered no, I didn't want to.
Right. Does any,
Well, I mean, if you look at the rest of my family, they went off, they don't do anything Jewish. So I must be a Jew by choice by that definition alone.
right. Yeah, there are many people who think that everyone today is a Jew by choice because you are choosing to be in or you are choosing to be out. I was recently working with a member of our congregation on a Devar Torah about the idea of karet. Karet is a biblical punishment, and it means to be cut off. And some people think that it means that in the world to come, you will be cut off from your people. But I actually really think that if you are that Jew who literally on the first night of Passover is eating spaghetti or bread and not at a Seder, you have cut yourself off from the Jewish people. That there are ways and choices that we make that either make us in or out. The in and out is larger. Edna, you're not agreeing? What are you saying?
No, I was thinking about what Stephen said before, and when I listened to the video and I'm listening to you, I'll say it very shortly. I felt that this distinction between assigning to most of the American Jews or the Canadian Jews being consumer and the Israeli more family oriented is very simplistic.
Yeah.
Because you know, first of all, if we are consumers, if I'm coming to the Jewish
You're
Center,
not. You're not.
No, I'm just saying, if I'm choosing to be a consumer and I'm coming what they said in the video for the peak moments of our life cycle, but mitzvah or mission to Israel, if I choose to do it, why did I choose to do it? I have probably a previous sense of belongings that I want to do it. And there are so many, like Steve said, that I don't know, his family members, the same in Israel, that according to what you said right now, will be kretim because they don't necessarily follow all the mitzvot and all the halacha.
Or any.
Or any even.
Any. It's not
or
all.
Any,
it's any.
or any who don't belong even, but they still are Jews.
So yes, they are.
So that's
But
why
they
I thought that the whole video was very simplistic.
No, but they get to choose to self-identify or not. Jews in America, much more so than Jews in Israel, we get to choose if we want to identify as Jews or not. And I would say that the place where this is quite simplistic, where I 100% agree with you, is that I don't think anyone on this video screen is part of that consumer model. You're just not. You are all involved Jews, and you are all Jews, as am I, who see Judaism much more as a family and part of peoplehood. Michelle.
I think I think Israel being such a small country and surrounded by enemies, they go to school together. I mean, I remember my cousin was with the same people all the way through school. So you have those people. Then you're in the army. Well, that creates a tight relationship. And then you go to the university, then you have that relationship. I mean, I think that's one reason the weddings are so big. And one reason why they're able to maintain a family relationship, even if, as Edna said, you have people who are completely disconnected from Judaism. So I don't know.
Well, right. The other piece is it's
Because
much.
I believe it is family here and there, or like you said, I liked your terminology from previous meetings. It's a belonging to the peoplehood.
Yes, this
Because
is
even
about
if
belonging
the
to
that
peoplehood.
comes only on the high holidays to the Jewish to the synagogue, still something driving.
Right.
Yeah, which is the.
Or even
I mean,
if he's a consumer, so what? He's part of the same.
the negative way of saying that is Yisrael Shechata Yisraelhu. They're still a Jew. Whatever you say, they're still a Jew. And as a Jewish educator, what we'd like people to feel is that we are family, right? One big family, because we'd like the connections to feel that tight. And my contention, and I actually will write back to the Hartman folks, is that anyone who takes this class, anyone who comes to shul, like you are part of the deep family. You see yourselves this way. I see myself this way. I think it's easier for Israelis who study Jewish history in school, who speak Hebrew, whose rhythm of their week is the Jewish calendar. It's much easier for them to feel that sense of familyhood, peoplehood, but we have it. We all have it. I'm going to go Michelle, and then I think Janet wanted to say something, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yes.
So when I'm thinking about consumer Judaism, the first thing that came to mind was that people really are looking for family. And I think often they don't find it and leave, or they can't find a way into it. So I think that's one, issue, which I'm sure you have on your mind all the time, that if you're a family, it has to be really clear that you're a family to people who are coming in. Otherwise, they may give up, because that's what the main thing they want to consume.
Right. So I agree with you. And I will say, I think I said this at my interview weekend here, right? You want to go where everyone knows your name. Cheers. You want to go where you're like part of the mishpacha. You're absolutely right. You want to feel held, especially in today's consumer society where we can write books called Bowling Alone that are about not a sense of feeling disconnected. Peoplehood is about feeling connected. Yes, Michelle, I think every day, all the time, as much as I can, but I'd love everyone else to think about peoplehood in the way of how can we make the TJC community feel like a place that is not welcoming, because welcoming means someone's a guest and someone is being welcomed in, but a place that is home for many, many, many different kinds of Jews who walk through our doors. How do we enlarge our tent while keeping our tent feeling home, like you've come home, like it's mishpacha? No, Janet, you were next. I'm so sorry.
Yes, no, that's okay. It seems to me, I know so many people who are completely unaffiliated with Judaism, have no knowledge of anything, and yet they're Jews, and they still feel like family to me, and they still, so, when a crisis happens, when October 7th happened, one of these people now starts wearing a Mogen David. I mean, they never did anything before, but all of a sudden, I mean, I think once you're a Jew and you know you're a Jew, you meet a Jew somewhere, in the middle of the country where there aren't that many people, you feel like family. It doesn't matter what they believe. It doesn't matter what they do. Just the fact that they
Matter what they
identify
believe.
as being Jewish. It
It
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter, right? It doesn't matter what they believe and what they do. It does matter what education or family they've come from. It does
Not
matter.
really.
Yeah,
Not
it
really.
matters what prior connections will take them back to our people. What will allow them to become what someone gave them a Magen David that they're wearing. They had something that made them want to.
So I actually came from a very secular family, extremely secular, with no Jewish upbringing really, except my family was Jewish, whatever. And I went one path to learn more. My sister stayed in that other path and is completely unaffiliated. Her children all married non-Jews. And yet her grandchild went on the birthright. She considers herself Jewish, even though she celebrates both. There's something that even completely unaffiliated Jews, if they knew they were Jewish, if they seem to keep that identity. There's a spark there of something.
We hope, and also thank God to all the funders of Birthright and all of those kinds of programs that pour an amazing amount of energy into lighting that spark. Like
And
into
they don't care if your mom is not Jewish.
right. They don't care. It's
Yeah.
true. Look, I always want to say that we are always open for anyone to find their roots and plant themselves here. And that will be our challenge. We're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year as a Beit Knesset, as a gathering place, a synagogue. But I affirm that we're called the Jewish Center and not, the name of not just a synagogue name. We're the center for the Jews in our area. How can we become more the center of Jews in our area? How can we make our place and our space warm and friendly and inviting? And it will not be done by the staff only. Michael Golden is here. He's working on our membership stuff. It will really be done by, each person mentoring and grabbing other people. So like Janet, next time someone with a spark walks in, but they don't have a lot of background, I'm sending them to you because you're going to be their mentor. And I can't tell you, a lot of people walk through the door of a synagogue at the liminal moment of when they're saying Kaddish, right? When they're saying Mourner's Kaddish. I'll tell you, at the Jewish Center, one of the ways that people get really involved through food, through Kiddush crew. They come on a Friday morning and they are given friendship and something to do. And then they feel that sense of mishpacha and belonging. Ellen, and then we're
Yeah,
gonna,
I was gonna just, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I've been a member of the Jewish Center for 30 years, and I'm seeing more and more people coming in, kiddish crew, whatever, and saying how much they feel like they're part of a family. More and more. And I think you brought up kiddish crew. I think of all the women who come on Friday mornings
and then,
and men, there are men also, that we are a family, a food family or whatever. But they're coming to services and they're doing more and more. And I honestly think we are becoming more and more of a family. I'm
I
hearing more and more of people saying how they
so I
love food.
challenge each person here to think about your unaffiliated son, daughter, neighbor, or friend. This I'm going off the class a little, and I challenge you to think about your unaffiliated son, daughter, neighbor, or friend. What could you and we build together here that would make the unaffiliated son, daughter, neighbor, or friend feel like they have a place here? The place doesn't have to be in the sanctuary, but has to be as part of the community. I mean, I'm happy to have them in the sanctuary, davening with us and singing with us and doing Torah with us. And this is not a answer right now question. This is a, how do we, all of us, build for the future? I would very much like to also invoke the name of our teacher, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, who came up with the idea that the synagogue should be a Jewish community center, right? He was that first, he was the rabbi who thought that the shul should have a pool and that it should have a basketball court and that should be the place where everyone gathers for everything. So each of us now in our own way, I'd love you to think in your own, we say your own Dalet Amot, your own four little small box that you're walking around in. What are we not doing? What can we do? Like,
The members of the Jewish Center, at least when I came, was unaffiliated.
yeah,
So I'm just throwing it into the air. And from what I remember, the body of the Jewish Center, the type of people, were, okay, how to put it? There were many groups of people that you don't see them now at the Jewish Center. Let's put it this way.
okay. And I don't know as much of that history, but
I'm generalizing.
so now we are where we are, and we are also a synagogue, and we are, so let's move from
So,
here and
yeah.
maybe Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem, renew our days as of old, take what was good about that and bring that back, and also keep going. I'm going to go to Mike and Judy and then Janet, and then we're going to go to something else. Mike?
Yes, I had an idea at the last Religious Affairs Committee meeting. And I have to get in touch with Joel to make sure we can do it.
Okay.
But the idea is to share lighting candles on Zoom before Kabbalat Shabbat as an outreach and as a way to get people to know each other.
Okay, very nice. By the way, for those of are any of you members of Na'amat? Na'amat women? No? Okay, I'm part of a national candle lighting with them next week.
They wouldn't let me in.
Correct. I think it was Judy, then Janet.
Well, I was just gonna say, and this is a thank you that I was waiting for the end for, but since we're talking about it now, that this group welcomed me so incredibly, and I'm always telling everybody, from back at Shalom, like how wonderful this has been and how kind everybody is. And I don't know anybody below the neck, but I feel like I'm, I feel like, you let me in the family, and when I saw the email about, there's only 2 classes left, and I'm feeling really sad that
No,
Oh,
I teach every Tuesday night. Don't worry, I'll come to you soon with
well, that's good.
I'm cooking something up with Eleni, and then I'm gonna go back to Hartman.
Okay, so that's
Love that you're here.
an outsider's perspective, that this is a very warm and welcoming group, and I thank everybody.
Yeah, we think that we're glad you're here. So Janet,
Yeah, so something you said actually, I thought was kind of interesting. It brought to mind, I lived in Akron, Ohio for a long time, and the center there was the Jewish Center. And that's where all Jews congregated. It wasn't a synagogue. There was a nursery school, so all the kids went to the nursery school there, and they had a pool. And so I do like that concept. And maybe, you know, like how there's Shema yoga, maybe we should have some more
We should build a
secular
pool.
things or
No, we should build a
semi-secular
pool.
things that will bring people that they're not going to come to Kabbalat Shabbat, or they're not going to, but they might come to Israeli dancing. They might
well,
come to,
you can ask Judy. I brought Israeli dancing to my last shul. I would love us to have Israeli dancing here. But I also,
So would I.
yeah, I
So,
think
so maybe there can just be some Zionist kind of things going on, or some secular things, not necessarily teachings
yeah,
that would
I
bring
agree.
other people.
Cultural- I think we need to move forward with more cultural things. Avi Paradise and I were working together today, and one of the ideas that we have that we'd like to do is something that might reach out to the Israeli American community, maybe in both Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. There are places now at the old train stations and other places where people do what they call Kabbalat Shabbat, where they come together on a Friday afternoon and they don't pray a traditional service. They have music and they have some food and they have music that brings in Shabbat, that has poetry of Shabbat, and they do Shira together.
The beaches in the summer. It
Yeah,
became
I go every summer. It's
became
amazing.
very
But
into
even less Jewish than that, if you're looking to bring in the general community, even less. You know, that's what I'm saying, like the Shema yoga or some other physical things, some other things, or just cultural things that would just bring people, Jews, together, and then slowly they can be introduced to.
Yeah. What someone here in you made a comment to me on line about the book that I had talked about, or I had dropped, Bowling Alone, which I have read, but now years ago. But you should read it. You know, interesting book to read about American society and how it has been growing since the 70s to a society where people are joining organizations less. Not country clubs, not swim clubs, not churches, not, you know, they're not bowling leagues, right? So they'd go bowling, but they're not going to be in the league anymore. And it's maybe a little countercultural to try to build community, but we're trying to build Jewish community. I think I went off a little from what the Hartman folks were thinking about, because I thought that, I think Edna sensed too, that the family model, they think is just the model that most Israeli Jews have, and that American Jews have more of the consumer model. And I actually disagree. I think we have the family model as well. I think we know and see that the predominant model, that it is changing in America, that there are many more Jews who are looking for that. How does it make me feel? And I don't get anything out of it, so I'm not going to come. I'm not going to be part of it. But I think it's not among our folks. We feel that sense of the family model. I think there is a tension between what Jewish identity looks like in America and what Jewish identity looks like in Israel, and how it changes, how they affect each other. And look, one of the hard pieces we know is that Israel kind of demands loyalty and solidarity from Jews in America, no matter what, even when there are times when we may disagree with its politics. Right now is a time like that for many of you. And it's painful. It's painful, and I believe it's painful because we do feel that sense of family. It's painful when you don't like how the family is being run. It's hard. I think that we would do better as an American Jewish community if we could continue, and also with our relationship with Israel, if we could continue to build up this idea that we're a family. And in a family, you have different likes and dislikes, and you all come to that Seder table. Maybe some, I don't know if you have ever done this, but I actually had an uncle of blessed memory, who we actually finally said to him, Uncle Al, we're calling the Seder for 6. We'll eat probably around 8:30 or 9 at night. Why don't you come then? Because we knew he wouldn't want to sit for the earlier parts. We have to look for ways to build that family model here in our community, but also to recognize that many Jews are part in the United States are part of this consumer model. And when you go to Israel, most Jews are part of the family model of Judaism. Debbie Brett?
I'm laughing because, you're always saying if you don't feel like sitting through services, come just for Kiddush.
Yeah.
Because that's how we keep our family here. I don't have much contact with any relatives anymore. My cousins were all older than me, and the next generation, I have little to no contact with them. But this is my family and my Jewish family. And it's totally different. It reminds me of the well-known song from West Side Story, when you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day. That's
You got brothers around, you're a family man.
Exactly. That's what it is. I think that's what we have. I mean, I see it here. I don't have much contact with any family. And
Okay,
my
is anyone on this Zoom under 50?
Sure.
Thank you, Edna.
Yeah, all of us.
So the challenge is,
That's our problem. We need to have.
yeah,
more
look, we
younger
have a
people.
large Hebrew school. That's not the problem.
Oh, okay.
And we'll have a lot of kids it's our Kabbalat Siddur this Saturday. The third graders get their Siddur and they have a cute little play. It's very sweet.
Oh, nice.
All the kids will participate in the service. What's our challenge? We have to get their parents to feel like they are part of the big Jewish family and they want to live their family life out like Debbie Brett has done here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way,
drop off.
by the way, Janet, that is why we are encouraging people to come and play chess at a Friday night dinner. That is why we are thrilled that there are 2 different Mahjong groups going on. And we're also thrilled that there's other activism and cultural things. I'm going to stop here. And I had wanted to play the second half of the video. Does anyone have the 20 minutes to hear that?
No,
Sure.
I have to go, Rabbi.
Okay, if you have to, you should go. And if you don't have to, we're going to play it. But does anyone have any last words? And also, I hope some of you will join me next week at the Greater Princeton Arts Council on Sunday, when I'm going to be at the Greater Princeton Muslim Center speaking in the afternoon about spirituality and art. Anyone have any last words before we actually look at the video?
Are we meeting next week?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're coming back after the video, right?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay, great.
Just a comment regarding the family belonging and the relationship between Israeli Jews and American Jews. Like you said before, that it's okay to criticize Israel because, you know, we all care about Israel and it's fine. But I still find doesn't matter that Israel exists for 75 years and the Israelis today are much more aware of the global world and they travel and they know United States and they work here and they come to different, they are familiar with United States. Still, the sense of family when it comes to criticize Israel, there is something when you talked before that they expect the American Jews to be loyal.
That's right.
Despite the fact that it's okay to criticize. So the difference is that I think most Israelis, and again, I'm generalizing, of course, would criticize and be very harsh and frustrated and angry about what's going on, including feeling miserable about what is going on with the other side. I mean, in this case, in Gaza or in Lebanon or whatever. But when you hear it for American Jews, you feel defensive and you feel hold on a second, I need to protect Israel. It doesn't matter. It's like, you know, my mom used to say, wash your laundry in your own house. Don't wash it outside the house. So it's the same feeling always that most of the Israelis, despite their criticism, despite their political view, doesn't matter. When they get it from American Jews, they get angry.
So the one place where that has changed. Okay, so Edna, the one where that has changed, and I will tell you where that has changed, and that has changed in the protest movement before October 7th.
With the reform.
With the judicial reform, when the Achim Baneshek when the folks were up and protesting against the current government, that was when Israeli Jews turned to the American Jewish community and said, you should be part of this. And that is why we have the unacceptable New York and Philadelphia and Los Angeles and all over the country. And then they turned into the folks who were helping right away in Israel, right? They immediately on October 7th, that night, they started helping right away. And now they are back a little bit to criticizing the government. But the number one, it is new that we are hearing from the Israel protest movement. Actually, the Jewish people do have a stake in what goes on in Israel, and we want to hear your words. I've heard it actually numerous times. If you listen to the Heavenly Torah podcast, who's listening to it? Anyone listening? I mean, I can't tell you the number of times that Danielle Hartman and Yossi Klein Halevi have said, and we think Americans, now it's your time, not just Americans, you know.
Because this is also changes in the Israeli society, because I would say most of the Achim LaNeshek are people that also spend time in United States in different places, whether Silicon Valley or Princeton. So they know also the American communities of today. But anyway, it's very interesting, the whole.
Well, that change between Israel diaspora relations is going on right now. And I maybe if you're Israeli, you think it's negative, except it's coming from Israelis who are saying to Americans, no, we want your voice. Anyway, we're going to have 20 minutes of this video. We may even end it early. We'll see. But if you need to go, if you need to do your laundry, you need to do whatever, that's fine. But if you want to stay on for it, great.
In the last lecture, we studied the ideas of family and consumer, two categories that define Jewish identity, collective and individual. Family was the model that shaped Jewish people's understanding of who we are as a community. We're a family. And that defined Jewishness for close to 3,500 years. Over the last number of decades, a new idea is emerging, which is shaping Jewish collective life in which Jews see themselves increasingly as consumers. Today, we're joined by two rabbis, Rabbi Sarah Loria and Rabbi Lauren Birkin. Two rabbis who both work within the community, within congregational settings, but not exactly within classical congregational settings. And I want to talk to you about that. Lauren, what is the nature of the congregations that you serve? And how do you experience the impact of consumerism on North American Jewish life?
Well, as director of rabbinic programs at Hartman, I have the privilege of working with hundreds of rabbis, most of whom are working in synagogue settings. And I'm also the spouse of a congregational rabbi in Miami. And so I'm deeply immersed in what I see as a deep anxiety that many rabbis face about membership and the declining dues-paying membership of so many synagogues in North America. And I think that rabbis are really facing a catch-22. Because living in a consumerist culture where people are addicted to instant gratification, to tangible benefits, to peak moments, rabbis feel an inordinate amount of pressure to perform in those peak moments, to give the most outstanding high holiday sermon, to give the most innovative and transformative bar mitzvah service.
Because if they won't, people will leave?
Because it's the one time in the year they have to deliver to a dues-paying member the product that that member is paying for in kind of that transactional relationship, the one time they have to touch people's souls, but also the one time they have to retain members in a competing marketplace where there are other options. And the challenge is that on a deep level, rabbis know that what humans are yearning for and longing for is a sense of belonging and community. And
the consumer doesn't know that?
Well, the consumer that wants those peak moments and maybe will only come in an episodic way one time a year, want to walk in that one time a year and feel at home and feel welcomed and feel fully themselves and be able to be open and vulnerable. But we know from a family model that that's not the way relationships are formed. We know if you think about families that live far apart from each other, that maybe see each other once a year on Thanksgiving or for a Passover Seder, and the immense pressure families feel that that one meal should be the most perfect family experience of full joy and deep bonding to last until the next year when the full extended family comes back together. And I think it's why so often holidays can be deeply disappointing and depressing because...
So are these moments deeply depressing for the rabbi?
I think that I think for rabbis, the moments feel insufficient. They're necessary, but not sufficient. We need those peak moments, but when you think about what creates a thick fabric of a family, it's the ongoing, sustained, often boring and mundane daily interactions. And
so the consumer wants family, but sets up a model which gives them something that they think they want, but then in fact they don't really, it's not going to give them what they really are looking for.
I
so
think
that's a sad story.
It's a challenge.
Sarah, what's your experience?
I love the idea of Judaism being a family. I run a synagogue, version of a synagogue, an adjacent synagogue out of my house. I run a community out of my house called Beloved. And my family—
At your house?
At our house. So my family is there. We have 4 floors in the house, and when we're having prayer on the first floor, my children are yelling because they don't want to go to bed on the second floor. So if anyone is invested in sharing the model of a Jewish family with her community, I would say I am in it. And I think in this moment in American life, consumerism has gotten into our bones in a way that is heartbreaking. And so I had never thought about consumerism the way you talked about it, which is that it really allows for us to create a marketplace in Jewish life that is vibrant and wonderful, which I am excited about. But what I often see in the consumerism part of America is that people are not there's an understanding that everyone is a product. Every human being is a product, and or that we're makers of products, and that's all we do, is that we go to work, and then we make perfect children, and then we make dinner, and then our lives are picturesque. And I think the consumerism model has been really detrimental to the spirit of American Jews, the spirits of Americans in general, because as we know, as countercultural Jews, the neshama is not a product. We are not here, we are not put on this earth to make it, to go to work. We are put on this earth to love and to breathe and to be human. And so I think consumerism has taken that away from us in some ways.
But you yourself still play a little bit within the consumerist model, don't you? You're appealing to Jews who, as consumers, aren't finding their place within a larger congregation.
I don't think about it that way. I hear what you're saying, and the way I think about it is that the institutions of the 20th century were set up with the understanding of the family loyalty model, right? They were set up to understand that Jews support Jews, and so we're going to build day schools and federations and synagogues, and Jews will come and they will join because the family model was strong, and there was a sense of loyalty and Jews first. I think that since we understand that that model doesn't work as well anymore, what I am trying to do is what I call re-familying. So I'm trying to make family a verb, not a noun. So if family is just like, these are the people you're stuck with and you've got to love them no matter what.
So family's not something you have to inherit.
Exactly. Family is something you actually have to do.
Invest in.
You have to choose to be obligated, which is the difference, I think, with the consumer model. You have to choose to be obligated to this set of people, but I don't think they're coming in and consuming Judaism at Beloved.
Right. Now, in the context of a congregation, of a larger congregation, is the family model dead? Is it possible to recreate it?
Well, I would agree with Sarah that we can't separate being part of a family from the doing, the actions. This is your Judaism of being and Judaism of becoming, I think, has a symbiotic relationship. And we know this even just from human relationships and from a healthy family, that feeling that you are part of a family comes from all of the activities you do with your family, whether it's family dinners, whether it's carpool and talking in the car. It's the regular, ongoing, sustained activities that create the fabric of a thick family identity. And actually, in your father's seminal work, A Living Covenant, David Hartman writes about the kinds of laws in the Torah, the mishpatim, which are the moral, ethical laws that are shared universally with all humanity. Do not kill, do not steal. But he talks about the chukim, those ritual practices of the Jewish tradition, whether it's the holidays or other ritual practices that are, in a sense, the family customs. Those particular practices are what create that sense of family ties and family memories. And so I think there needs to be a balance in a relationship between feeling part of a family because that's just who you are, and all the things that you do in an ongoing, sustained way.
So coming to shul is almost, coming to synagogue is almost, it's not coming to the family that you're coerced to belong to, but it's actually coming to your family story.
Right, and the challenge is if you only come once or twice a year, how will you create that? That's the great challenge.
So the problem of congregational life is not the family model. And both of you are speaking about how people really want the family model. That there's, you want to turn into a verb. And you were speaking beforehand about how people, they really want to feel connected. The problem then is that we want family, but we're not investing enough to actually create a sustained one. It's, as you said before, and I'm going to see you once a year. What type of family do we have? So the synagogue, it's not that the family model is dying, but that the frequency, the bandwidth, undermines it because you don't feel it, and then you become a consumer.
Danielle, you spoke in your lecture about how consumerism can actually help lead to excellence, because it inspires rabbis and Jewish communities to create experiences of real meaning and quality. And it makes me think about the way in which peak experiential moments can then become the seed for ongoing family. And I think we see this a lot in synagogue communities. Ironically, I think we see this in Israel missions for so many American synagogues, taking a small group from a large synagogue and bringing them on a 2-week journey to Israel ends up producing years and years of committed members who feel deeply bonded with one another as a mini community, a chavurah within the larger synagogue. They become the future lay leadership of the synagogue. And out of that peak moment where many families are, in a sense, purchasing an intensive Jewish identity investment for their family, and it's an expensive investment. But
it's like a family vacation.
But it's more.
Like
but it's a pilgrimage.
I take my whole family on vacation so that they'll have intense.
Families invest in that as well because they know that it's those memories, those building of those intense experiences that will then kind of fuel that.
I want to
family
come back
bond.
to the Israel model in a moment because something really interesting is happening where you come to Israel. Not to be at family with Israelis,
Exactly.
but to be at families with yourself.
Right.
And I want to come back to that in a
Exactly.
moment. But how do you feel this idea of creating family as a verb through peak experiences? How do you relate to that?
I would say what we're doing is the exact opposite. We're doing the weaving of relationships. It's not about something out there. It's about something in this room. That's why we do our work in our living room, because you can only have 40 or 50 people in our living room, and we have to look at each other, and it's very down on earth, not at the peak at all. I think that what our people experience in the capitalist consumer culture that we have is that they themselves as human beings don't matter. It's what they can think about and create and produce that really matters. And then they go out in culture, and that's what they experience. And then they come to Beloved, we hope, and they experience that they themselves matter, that their spirit, it matters that they're there. And not just that any 50 people are there, but that each one of those people, it matters that they're there. And if that's a peak experience, then great. That's their peak experience. That I look at them when they come in, I'm so glad you're here. There's wine in the kitchen. And then we sit together in the living room and we have an experience of being with each other, sharing in small groups.
But the size of your community gives you opportunities in many ways. What you're talking about is creating peak experiences for smaller numbers of communities within a congregation that has thousands of people. So is the future of North American Jewish life to move to smaller ones, or do we stay, or is it the larger ones breaking down, moving back and forth? Because what Lauren was speaking about is I'm serving, I don't know how many thousand families in this congregation, tens, I don't know how many people. So I have to create these mini communities. Is that where we're going to go, or are the larger communities going to survive, but with these peak experiences?
I'm invested in small scale.
You're in small scale.
I'm invested in small scale. I think if we want to communicate family, it's very hard to do it on a large scale.
It just is.
You don't start by introducing your baby to your extended family and having any one of them take care of the baby. You have your immediate family. And so if we're going to show people that you're part of a bigger story, they have to feel it in their bodies. And so when they're at Beloved, they feel in their bodies, you are part of this story here of the 50 of us. And we have what I called an ancestor wall, which is that we have pictures of Beloved's people who have died, people who they've loved who have died on the wall with a mirror. And so they know that their people are in this room with them, and that they are also present in this room through the mirror. And I want them to know you are here, your story is part of this place. And I cannot do that on a large scale. And I do actually think that large congregations, Angela Buchdahl said when she took the reins of Central Synagogue, she said, I want to make this place bigger, meaning I want to live stream our services, which she does, and I want to make it smaller, meaning you can't feel this sense of intimacy in a huge place. You have to have that family, small family model.
I hear you. It's really interesting how these two models of family and consumer are alive in both of your institutions in very, very different ways, and how you dance or speak to people who come with those two models, and how also, in many ways, you're both trying to revitalize a family model, one within a smaller structure, and one by creating peak moments within a community. I want to shift now for a moment on the way you experience family and consumerism in the relationship to Israel. You spoke about Israel as, I don't know, the vacation, the Disneyland, the place for a peak moment for your community to feel family with each other. What about an experience of family towards Israel? And how is that creatable? Do the peak moments do that? Or is that something that the 6,000 to 10,000 miles away just makes it irrelevant?
I think that's a real challenge. I think that you're correct that most Israel missions, Israel becomes the product or the tool for strengthening American Jewish identity in local communities back in America. And it's not about creating genuine family relationships between American Jews and Israelis, or a deep, nuanced understanding of Israeli society. But I do believe that it is possible to create a more nuanced and rich relationship with Israel.
A family one?
I do believe that. I believe it can happen through education.
Through education.
Because in addition to peak experiences that can be immersive and short-term, ongoing rich education, which sometimes it can
so in
create
many
that
ways,
family
what you're
model.
doing is exactly, you're doing a Sarah move when it comes to Israel. You're saying, I can't create peak experiences which create a family with Israel, but I have to do sustained long-term engagement with Israel. Does that then create family?
I think it creates a sense of obligation, commitment, mutual understanding if there's a genuine process of engagement with ideas, with texts, and with people and relationships. And I think the challenge in a consumerist environment is whether people will make that commitment the time that it takes to do the learning and the dialogue. Because you asked if it's possible to create relationships with Israel. I think one of the obstacles for many American Jews today is that they are engaging with Israel in sound bites, in alerts at the bottom of a TV screen, in the way in which social media approaches any topic in short form. And Israel is so complex and so nuanced, and there's no way to unpack the layers and layers of complexity and ethical dilemmas and different ways in which American Jews can understand their Jewish identity in this era of sovereignty without taking time to study, to grapple with dilemmas.
It's like family is only strong when you actually spend the time to know each other. Israelis speak about the family model, that they feel that you are family. Do you feel that Israelis feel that you're, do you feel they're verbing a family to you?
No.
You don't
No.
feel?
I can't get there because for me, family means intimacy. And so I really think that I want to tell you a story, a short story.
I love stories.
Okay.
Because we're a family.
When we have meditation at Beloved every Sunday night we've had it for about a year. And often 10 people come, 12 people come. It's a small group. It's a beautiful, we're weaving relationships, all of what I just said about family. Then we had a Sunday night in November, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, where we had 30 people at meditation. And I asked, what brought you here? And they said, I'm so stressed out because I just spent the weekend with my family. So I love your vision of loyal, heart-opened family. I know it's not as simple as that, but I also think the word family is overlaid with a lot of obligation that doesn't feel good. And in a culture where you get to choose what you're obligated to, why would you choose something that doesn't feel good if it's not actually your immediate family who you are forced together with on Thanksgiving? I'm not saying this for all people. I'm just saying this was an experience we had at Beloved. So I just am excited to think more about the in-between. There's something about choosing to be obligated and finding meaning out of that choice that feels like it's both family and consumerism and not extreme in either way.
It's
So
interesting. Yes,
I also have a story I want to share, and it's also related to that question of family. I think that what is so attractive for people about being part of a family is feeling accepted, feeling seen, feeling known. And we recently had an encounter between a group of North American rabbis and a group of Israeli rabbis for a week, an intensive encounter. Maybe the first time Israeli rabbis and American rabbis had that amount of time to dialogue and to study together. And there was a very powerful moment when an American rabbi said to the group, "I'm so pained that I've spent my entire adult life learning Hebrew, studying Zionist thought, studying Jewish text, feeling that it was my responsibility to get to know Israel and Israelis, and I don't feel it reciprocated. It feels like a one-way street. Have you ever read the hundreds of years of Jewish thought that have come out of the conservative movement and American Jewish thinkers? Have you read our stories?" And it was one of those moments, those aha moments, and the Israelis felt, wow, we haven't read your hundreds of years of Jewish scholarship and Jewish thought. We don't fully know you.
You know, for Israelis, I could speak for myself, the most significant part of family is loyalty. Is that I will be there for you whenever you need me. I don't have to like you. I don't have to know you. You just have to know that I have your back. And this is so embedded in the Zionist story. This is what we are a community. Maybe it's the embattledness, but and again it goes back to the tragic model or what you either tragedy or challenge, that for Israelis, they actually feel they're phenomenal family members. We're there for you. But you're looking for family.
We're
as
not
a
looking
verb.
for instrumental relationships. We're looking for genuine relationships of trust and vulnerability, and I think it's a human
hearing
yearning, and we don't
seeing,
feel
and you don't
that
feel
we're
that.
seen and known.
Family, consumer, stories, challenge, is it a tragedy? Sometimes it's also a comedy of errors. But it's a dance. I want to thank you, Sarah and Lauren, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say that I want to thank Edna for working with the Omer community with us so that we all do get to know each other. Really, no, it's the knowing back and forth. And I also think that we are building that deep kind of familial connections within our own community here. And what we, hopefully all of you who are still on, you know, what I'd love you to do is to be the shlichim, the emissaries, to go out and bring people into the community for whatever parts of it that will work for them or that we can build with them. Toda, toda, ve'amen, ve'amen. Also, I put it in the chat, Rabbi Lauren Birkin is a good friend of mine. She is the one that helped me choose this curriculum, and we've been talking about the next ones I'm going to use, but she's also a graduate of Princeton University. Does anyone have any final words?
I thought that this part of the video is very interesting for several reasons. One, it was the perspective of the rabbi.
They're all three rabbis.
No, I know, but he interviewed them. That's what I meant. No, I'm talking about the second part with the Lauren and Sarah. What's her name? Lauren and Sarah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sarah was talking about a small, beloved kind
Yeah.
of, which reminds me that when I was teaching at the universities at Princeton and Rutgers, it reminds me what she's doing. As a matter of fact, it's a lot what the Chabad rabbis are doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of students felt at home, you know, so you go to pray, you eat the challah that the rabbits and wife baked, and you know the kids, and you babysit, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. And what the other one, Lauren spoke, I thought it's, for me, always, it's very educational because she raised the point that the Israelis, also in Princeton, again, I'm generalizing, most of them don't feel at home at the Jewish Center or in any synagogue. No, or at any
I know.
synagogue. No, I don't mean Jewish center.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah, yeah. No, I know. And
at a synagogue.
yeah.
And she raised the point, vice versa, that the Israelis themselves also don't know much about the Jewish American history. And they don't have a lot of understanding because they don't know. So I thought it was a very interesting.
I'm glad you liked it. The week before Pesach, we have a bar mitzvah at the synagogue, and I just want everyone to come because here's my thing. I want everyone to come for every bar bat mitzvah so that we can like embrace the families. But this one is a child who is just here for a year. It's an Israeli family. And I think that it's so interesting to watch them learn about American Judaism. And they're having a great time. I was in the sanctuary with them, with Avi, with the father and the kid today. And it's like beautiful to see them kind of embrace a different kind of Judaism than they were exposed to at home. Anyone have any final comments? Okay. Thank you each and all. Again, Saturday morning is Kabbalat Siddur for our little ones, for our Gimel class, our third graders. So the adorable factor will be high.